Hello there, my friend. Welcome to another episode of Talk Music Talk with Boice. I am Boice, and this is my podcast you are listening to. Talk Music Talk is a weekly music interview podcast where I have long-form conversations with people connected to music from different genres and different backgrounds, established and emerging singers, singer-songwriters, performers, music therapists, music journalists. And on this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking to Travis Johnson, vocalist and guitarist of Grooms, a Brooklyn band. They have a new album out on October 20th. It is called Exit Index. One of the best albums of 2017. I got into Grooms several months ago, and I've been a fan ever since, starting with their fourth album, Comb the Feelings Through Your Hair, and I've been working my way back through their catalog. I can tell you that Exit Index, the fifth album, does not disappoint. Travis is originally from Texas, and he made his mark on the music scene a few years after moving to New York in 2004. He was involved in Death by Audio, the now-defunct Brooklyn DIY space. In the conversation, we talk about Death by Audio and the relevance of it on his life. We talk about him getting started on guitar at 12 years old, his influences, his lyrical themes, his dealing with OCD, and of course, we talk about Exit Index and the making of it. After the interview, you will hear one of my favorite songs from it, Magistrate Seeks Romance. Right after the conversation, here it is. Without further ado, my interview with Travis Johnson of Grooms. Enjoy. Before we started recording, you mentioned sequencing the new album, which is called
Exit Index.
Exit Index.
Yeah.
And sequencing, you said for this album was hard.
No, this one was actually
easy.
This one was easy.
One.
The previous one was a nightmare for some reason.
And why was that?
I don't even really remember at this point. I think because it was kind of an obviously big break from the one before it, and it was the first one where It was. I was the only original member at that point, and so we probably should have changed the name even. And so I was just kind of like, all right, what's the track listing that's really going to be like, you know, what's the first song people need to hear for this new band or whatever? Even though, you know, we kept the same name and stuff like that. So and Grooms. Then, kept it. Shouldn't have been Grooms anymore. Even. And so I think that was why it was, and then. And just like how to, I mean, it probably didn't even matter that much. But in my head, I was like, oh God, you know, it's gotta be a big statement or whatever. And this record, I don't know why, because it feels like just as big of a break from the previous record, but maybe I just was to a point where I was like, I don't care as much anymore or something. I don't know. And the songs just made sense more obviously. I don't really know.
I feel it is important. I mean, you think about your favorite albums.
It's not even that I mean, I love doing stuff like that. And I love even like coming up with titles for songs and albums and all that stuff. And for some reason, all of it just came really naturally this time in a way that it usually doesn't. Yeah. So I don't really know why I was worrying about it so much last time. And this time I just didn't, you know. Yeah. I started with, I was like, all right, well, this one's got this sound at the beginning, so it's got to be the first song. And that's it. Then this song's got to be second because it goes well out of that one. And I just kept building it.
Okay. Were you looking for certain moods, ebb and flow and all that?
I wanted to like, you know, maybe cross or, you know, cover a few bases, certain bases on the first side that to make sure that if anybody would only listen to the first few songs, they'd at least hear this or that kind of aspect of the record. And then I wanted to make sure that both sides had a really killer kind of closing track before you flip the record over. Okay. So that was kind of it.
Okay. So you were thinking of A and B as opposed to someone listening to it on Spotify.
I usually, I always do. And I don't know if that is even really something I should do. Yeah. Because certainly, I mean, you know, obviously like, as they say, like vinyl sales are up and everything, but it's still like dwarfed by by Spotify. I mean, like already like 10,000 more people have heard our song on Spotify than we'll ever hear it on vinyl probably.
But vinyl sales are up because it's like 30.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, we sold 40 records on vinyl instead of 5. So, yeah, if it ends up working both on vinyl and digitally, then that's obviously good. And it can, and it did for this one. So, but I always think about it in terms of what's gonna close it out, and then you also have to think about like, all right, a side can only be this long for vinyl, and so
does that take place about how much time for vinyl as you're writing the songs, or
no? I mean, if we had written
or recording,
no, from my perspective, I always think like make whatever you can the best you can. Worry about practical things later. So if the record sounds best with a bunch of like drum machines and stuff like that you don't have live on stage, just make it the best record you can, and then figure it out later. If the record has one 30-minute song which cannot fit on a single side of vinyl, worry about it later. But if it needs to be 30 minutes, which it never does, but if it somehow did, like for us, like then just figure it out later. I'm always thinking about it, like just what the song needs to be first.
Okay.
So.
And how do you keep the pace? Because I mean, look, this is the 5th album.
Yeah,
it's been every 2 years. Right? Yeah, that's pretty good.
I don't know how, or even at this point, to a certain extent, why. But I mean, like besides the fact that I just wouldn't do anything else, I mean, if people stopped listening to music for whatever reason, just all kinds of music, if it just stopped being listened to, I'd still make it. So I was like, I might as well just see if anybody else wants to hear it. And 2 years is just kind of a natural clip, I guess, for us, where we can do 3 months of touring, then 3 months of writing, then 3 months of recording, and and then still get to like take breaks in between all those things. And then there's like a 3-month album cycle, and as I'm saying that, it only adds up to a year, but we'll just say that there's, like it just works in that way, where that's like comfortable. Right. Yeah. So, cause you still, this time it's actually a little bit longer than normal because, it's like closer to, it's like 2 3/4 years or something, because, I got married and I got engaged and married after the last record. So all of that kind of, was like its own thing, which, that's just like life. Life is still happening while you're like, unless your band is making insane amounts of money, like there's no sense in like hemming your life in around the band. So, yeah.
And for you, for that year, I mean, is there like a pace you're doing where I got to write in this time limit, we got to do this, like you have it scheduled out?
This one was probably the most scheduled in a weird way, because this is the first time we ever had a plan for how to make a record, or that I've ever been working on a record where there was a plan. And the plan was we put out the last record, and 6 months later we were on tour, and I want to say we were on a day off in Greece or something. And Jay, who plays bass, was saying, he's like, what we should do is we should get back and we should get our practice space all to ourselves for 1 month, because it's going to be expensive. So let's only do it for a month to have it completely to ourselves. And like in that month, let's write a record.
Okay.
So we ended up having it just kind of through luck for longer than a month. And so we had, by the end of that month though, we had like 8 songs. And by the end of the next month, we had another 8 songs or so. And halfway through the 3rd month, we went in and recorded, and we also knew we had to get everything ready to be recorded by, it was like mid-March or something, because we were going to record at the Magic Shop, which was a studio in Lower Manhattan, and they closed. We knew that they were going to close. So we were like, all right, this whole thing is like, and so as opposed to normal where it's like, we've got a practice space, like let's get together. I've got a few songs. This was more like we had like regular rehearsals. Like we also had, it was down the street from me and Steve, our drummer. So at the middle of the night, I'd just be like, Steve, do you want to, I just came up with this thing on the synth. I have this like new synth line or whatever. Do you want to just get together and we'll work on it? And then we'd do that at 2 a.m.
Okay.
That was totally new. It was, it was like, we're on a mission to write a record in a certain amount of time. And so
and how long was the recording?
Recording was, we were only in that studio for 1 day.
Okay.
And it was actually like 8 hours, really.
Yeah.
And it was the last day. We were there and they were like closing up the next day.
Yeah.
And then we took, that was just for drums and bass, really. And so then we took everything home, and then for the next like 4 months or so, I just tinkered and chopped up the drums on some songs and sampled them and looped them, and then, created things out of things. And
is that the way you like your drum sound? Like not just to organically?
I kind of like a thing where, I mean, I like a lot of kinds of drums sounds, I guess, but I really like that. I mean, I listen to a lot of electronic music and hip hop and stuff where the drums are sampled or just completely inorganic to begin with.
Yeah.
And I like the sounds that are capable or possible with that. And I like the way that a drum sounds, or that a drum loop sounds when it's sampled from a record from the 60s and cut up in a certain way and then kind of a little bit distorted through like a digital sampler. And I like those things. And I also like the way that a really good drummer sounds. So I like to, I mean, we just kind of just depended on the song.
How'd you decide on which songs? 10 songs from the 16?
Yeah, maybe it was 14 or something, it was basically just the ones that were the best. Okay. I mean, there was one that I think is really good, but it was just like entirely electronic.
Yeah.
And there was like nothing organic or non-synthetic on the whole song. And that's fine. But it was just kind of like the record is already kind of skewing in that direction, but this was just going to be like too loudly that kind of thing or something. So, and then there was a song that was just like not as good. And, another one that we didn't even record because it was already not as good, and stuff like that. So it was like the last song, which is probably my favorite song on the record and probably my favorite song we've ever done. We recorded that kind of on a little bit of like a lark. It was a bass line and a drum beat that they had come up with, Steve and Jay, and had this kind of like trip hop feel to it. And I didn't really know where it was going to go and wasn't sure it was going to be on the record, but we recorded it anyway. And then it ended up just kind of like taking shape out of kind of just those little parts. So.
And you sing on the album, guitars. What else? Is that it? Production?
Samples and synth and stuff like that. And the other guys do stuff too, in that regard. And I would definitely say it's a very like collaborative process in terms of what the song's going to be. Like a lot of times I'll have like there's the one single so far, which is called Turn Your Body. At the time, I only had this one chord progression, and I was like, I don't know what else it can do. And Jay was just like, here. And he like played, I think it's like an E flat minor or something like that chord for the chorus. And he was like, it could go to this. And then after that, he, like he doesn't even play that on the song, but then I play it. And, but it was his idea, So, and then Steve is kind of like, got like a lot. I mean, everybody's got like lots of ideas. So a lot of it probably disproportionately played by me, but it's not necessarily like more me than everybody else.
Got it.
Yeah.
But this is kind of your vision, the band.
I think it's maybe more than everybody else's, I guess. Yeah, maybe it is a little bit disproportionate, but it's still, I would say it's much more collaborative than a lot of bands that I know.
Yeah.
And, bands that I've been in too, and I wouldn't necessarily want, like I hate the idea of, for me anyway, like playing in a band where it's like I have a song and then I write a bass line for somebody else and I teach them. Those playing with Steve and Jay like makes the songs better. Like they'll push me in way, like I'll have like a an idea, and they'll be like, it's cool, but here's what needs to, like, it needs to be more this or that for it to be really special.
Okay, got it.
So.
And was guitar your first instrument?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 12.
Okay. I
moved. My family moved, and I didn't realize until we moved that my parents both had guitars. I saw them getting moved out of the moving truck.
Okay. Were they like buried in the basement or something?
Yeah, I guess so. Or their closets. Or I don't even know. But then I just picked it up and just tried to learn how to play other people's songs so that I could learn chords and stuff like that.
Okay. Did they show you any stuff, your parents?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, at that point, I didn't even know. I mean, my dad told me what a chord was.
Yeah.
Because I thought you were supposed to just play one string at a time. Okay. And he was like, you need to learn some chords. And I was like, what's that? And he told me, and I was like, that sounds impossible. Like you're pushing down multiple things at the same time.
What is this madness?
Yeah, no, it sounded insane. I remember thinking, I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to do that. But, and you know, he maybe like showed me like some basic chords like G and E minor and things like that. And then like maybe bought me like a tablature book for like Beatles songs or something like that. And but it was very much like just playing in my room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you take to it pretty quickly?
I guess so. I mean, I still don't even think I'm not really that good. Like I retune my guitar so that they sound more special than they are. It's because it's like a limit of my ability to play cool things in normal tuning. That's why I do it. Okay. So, but I still can't like, you know, really shred or anything. But yeah, I mean, I played it all the time. So I guess I got to where I could confidently and what's the I don't even know. Yeah, I got to where I was decent.
You felt good enough. Okay. Yeah. What were you listening to when you were around that age?
A huge record for me, and I remember having this tablature book too. Was Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins. And that was good to learn how to play those songs because it just showed me like here. I was like, oh, I love the way those chords sound. What makes them sound that way? And it was just like it's just this one kind of chord formation. That's it. It was pretty huge when I heard. I remember my dad made me listen to the White Album because I was making fun of his old like dinosaur bands or whatever. And I remember, you know, I've probably said this in interviews before, but like that was the first time I was ever like really kind of scared of music. I was just like, there's something really kind of off and dark and creepy about this that I really responded to. I was like, I want to listen to this more so that maybe so that it didn't scare me anymore. I don't know. I mean, it was like, obviously that whole record's not scary, but there were just moments where I was like really just kind of disturbed by a texture or something. And then from there it was, you know, like, I remember having a summer where I got really into New Order and Pavement and the Smiths all kind of at once. And it was a big summer.
These are all good things.
Yeah, they were good. Yeah.
Were you always, your music is very melodic, the vocals.
Oh, cool.
Were you always like attracted to like strong hooks?
I think I was in other people's music, and I didn't realize for a while that I wasn't very, like I maybe our first record is not that melodic. Like there's a couple melodic songs on it, but it's much more like kind of tossed off and like a little bit like, man, fuck you. Here's a melody, you know, like whatever. And, but at some point I realized I was like, you know, the music I like is actually a lot more melodic than the music I make. So I was like realizing that maybe I wasn't doing as much, or I wasn't succeeding at doing what I wanted to do. So then I think I started trying to work more on melodies that I would want to hear.
Okay.
So,
and how do you do that? Like, what is a step to?
I don't know.
Be more melodic.
I don't know if this is really how to do it, but I remember having a thing where I listened. Maybe like I think it was just around that same time, and I just listened to like Tears for Fears over and over again. I was just like, these are just like undeniable melodies, like, and thinking, just kind of internalizing those, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's there's definitely not, I wouldn't think a certain way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
cause it's melody, but there's also like the noise. Yeah. It's not straightforward.
I think
the music up against it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's kind of the idea is for very rarely for things to just be kind of one thing, you know? There's not a whole lot of like just nice acoustic songs that I like by anybody.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of like, just like drop B doom metal that I like to listen to for forever. Where, you know, like I do like those things, but I don't like love them in the same way that I like things where there's something kind of more unexpected and where there's a texture you wouldn't expect up against another texture that, you know, that's just much more interesting to me. So having like a melody that plays off of a song in an interesting way is just more fun for me.
So as a kid, once you start getting more proficient, when did you start writing your own stuff?
Probably pretty much right away.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but it was terrible. Yeah, I mean, it was like, I mean, it was no good. And it was probably, I don't think I wrote a song that I would think was good until, let's see, I started playing when I was 12. So it was probably like at least like 16 or 17 before, like there would be a song where I would be like, yeah, that's a pretty good song, kid, you know? So I remember I used to write lyrics to no song, you know, or I'd like steal somebody else's melody and like just write lyrics to that melody and just see what you could do with like the limitations of like the melody that person had set out. And
I thought only I did that too.
Oh, really? You did that too?
I used to do that.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sure. I bet. I guess it's probably not the most uncommon thing.
I've never heard anyone say they did that.
Really?
Yeah. I used to love doing that.
Who did you do it with?
Oh God, I did it with like Duran Duran songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I would try to write like Simon Le Bon because his lyrics are like really weird and esoteric, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially for like how big and pop. Records.
Like I listen to it now and I'm like, how the hell did they get that on the radio?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's I hadn't thought about it until now. Like that's what I used to do, but it makes sense, right? Like it makes sense that that's what you'd kind of do. Like before you're like to a point where you can come up with a melody, you kind of like play around with somebody else's. You know, and
you're at least getting the skill of writing lyrics.
Yeah, exactly. And a structure, right? And which, you know, you don't. Not everybody has to. I think that some of like the kind of like more like Marky Smith, like rambling kind of thing is cool too.
Yeah.
But I didn't know Marky Smith when I was 13. So yeah, I would just like take probably a song off Siamese Dream or something and just be like, all right, here's the cadence of the vocals and you know, and so it was a long time before I started writing anything decent. And to answer that question.
Okay. And Grooms started as Muggabear? Is that right?
It was it was this band with just like the silliest name, which was the idea, called the Muggabears. And I named it that as just a joke, I guess, in college or something. And then somebody while I was in college was like, hey, you want to put out a record? I'm starting up a label. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so then I was like, well, we've got a record out, so now we can't change the name, which is just stupid too. I should have just been like, no, like this is a bad name. Like this is a stupid name. And then we moved to New York and some people were coming to see us. So I was like, we can't change the name now, which again, really silly. Because it was a bad name. and the idea was that it was a bad name, but it was like, again, like the same kind of thing with like the melody thing where I was like, yeah, it's a bad name and it's a funny joke to you, but like if that were another band that you'd never heard of, and you heard there was a band called something equally bad, would you think it was funny enough to check them out? You probably wouldn't. Like,
you'd be judging it, maybe.
Right? Yeah. So at some point, I was just like, I think maybe like my friend Ariel was just like, he was like, you need to change the name. It's time. And so like, then we just like reset and we were just started a new band. It was me and my friend Emily. So.
Okay. Was that your first serious band, or became serious because someone offered you a record to release it?
Yeah, I guess that was the first. Yeah, I mean, at some point, like it was like my senior year of college or something. At some point, I was like, I think I'm just going to move to New York and try and, have fun playing music. And so it was this guy in college who his like a grandparent died and left him a lot of money, and his idea was that he was going to start a label with it. And so that was the first time where I was like, oh, somebody could actually hear this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that was in Texas?
I grew up in Texas, but I went to school in Oklahoma.
Okay.
So that was in Oklahoma.
Okay. Where'd you go to school?
University of Oklahoma.
Okay. And what did you go for?
I majored in history.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what were you going to do with that, teach?
I don't know.
Still figuring that out?
Well, I mean, I was interested in history, but in terms of, when I declared my major, I was 18, and I don't know what I thought I wanted to do after school at that point.
Yeah.
So I think I just was... I just didn't know. Yeah. And at some point, I realized, like I said, I was, I think I just want to play music or try to play music, and having a degree will help get a job. And it did, I've got temp jobs where just having a bachelor degree, it could have been in theater set design, would have gotten me the same job, And, but that said, I liked history. Yeah. And
any particular area?
I did a lot on like 1900s, like the 20th century politics, really, and economics, and ended up taking a lot of classes on Soviet stuff, Soviet collapse, and things like that.
Okay, so what did you like about that?
Well, I don't know that I took those classes at first because I think it was maybe just to fulfill a requirement where something had to be Eastern history to a certain extent, and our Eastern European. But I thought it was incredibly fascinating because, it's a really interesting thing you have the United States, especially in the 80s, trying to really just crush the Soviet Union. Kind of, in Reagan's mind, it was between good and evil, but it's ultimately kind of just like all you really did was just make it so that a bunch of Russians couldn't eat. You just you just raised the stakes until their economy couldn't handle it anymore. And I don't know. It was like when I was like kind of learning what I believed about politics. And so I was just thinking about it's like, well, I don't like Reagan and I don't like Stalin. But not that those two ever dealt with each other, but just kind of thinking like it's like, well, I'm definitely have a lot of socialist tendencies, but I understand that like the Soviet Union didn't really work. So just trying to find out why and how things like that. Okay, I guess.
And is that still an interest of yours?
Yeah,
history?
Yeah. Okay. I still pull out those textbooks every once in a while and just read a chapter or so.
Oh, you didn't sell them?
No, I sold most of them, but there were like I probably have like 10 or so of the ones that were the most interesting to me. Okay,
so you moved to New York, rock star dreams.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. How was the move to New York? Were you visiting? Had you been visiting any?
Was that like before I moved?
Yeah.
I'd been up here. We did some like brief like 5-day tours where we'd come up from Oklahoma to New York and then turn back around. And I'd visited once. I think I was here on like my 18th or 19th birthday, and that was the first time I came. And just at the time, I'd never really. Dallas is a big city, but it's not that interesting of a city. And at that point, New York was very expensive, but not as ridiculously as expensive as it is now. And there were not nearly the amount of condos everywhere. Yeah. And so it just kind of, was just kind of entranced by it, I guess. And just was like, I'm just gonna move there.
Yeah. Did it feel inspiring, like being in the city at that point?
It did when I visited, and when I moved up here, I found it incredibly uninspiring for a long time. Yeah. Because it was, it just, I don't know. Part of it was that I had like a temp job where I'm working in Midtown, and that's fine. There's nothing. I'm not saying you can't be inspired while you have a day job or anything, which I still have, but it was, I just kind of was like, where's the like city that I thought I saw? And, it was a few months before I really like kind of just dove into the DIY scene and found that that's where like where things were exciting.
Yeah. Is that how you got involved with Death by Audio?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was I think the first time I came over to Death by Audio, the old space in Williamsburg, was we were supposed to play a show, and we had to this was Mugga Bears. Had to pull out of it because our drummer had to be out of town or something like that. So we ended up going to the show anyway and meeting the people that like ran the space and everything, and just hung out and started hanging out there all the time. So,
and what did you like about this DIY scene?
I think it was just as close as it got to like my musical ideal of you have a space with reasonably low overhead, so you don't have to like schedule bands every night that are going to sell hundreds of tickets. You can have experimental noise bands and like really obnoxious folk bands and things like that are going to bring 10, 20, 30 people. And I didn't like all of it, and I don't think anybody would like all of it, but like it's like that's that the idea at least of freedom, which it's a lot closer to that sense of that ideal of like just kind of musical freedom where I've got this idea, it's not developed enough that it's going to bring a lot of people, but I know there's like 6 warehouse venues where I can play. So it was just not even just for me, but it was just the idea of it. I mean, it was like that's what I had responded to in a lot of bands, was the idea that they had just done what they wanted to do without thinking about how marketable it was.
Okay, because I talked to Natasha from Thelma and Leticia from Vagabond, and they were both saying like they got involved in DIY scene as how it's inspiring to see these people doing that, because there's this huge step, like being like, okay, I'm going to play Madison, right?
Sure.
But here's something you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that was a big thing for me that summer that I got into Pavement, and I probably even like try and play down their influence on me sometimes, but it was huge to hear a band that like was fine leaving in mistakes and like was fine with like really kind of shoddy recording quality, and that could be its own aesthetic, and obviously they weren't like the first lo-fi band ever or anything, but that was really cool to me, and that it was the same thing with DIY, where it's just like, this is a doable thing, and that's supposedly, I wasn't there, but that was supposedly the idea with punk, it was just like, if you can play 2-3 chords, you can have a band.
For it. So. And then also, too, the audience is responsive. It's not like you go to some places and everyone's talking because they're at the bar and they don't care that you're on stage.
Right. Yeah, I mean, or at least more so. I feel like the people who would come to Death by Audio on a given night were there because they wanted to see music. Because I mean, if why else would you go see somebody that's going to bring 30 people? It's not. It's not going to be like the cool social thing to do. It's going to be because you're curious, at least, or you really like that band.
Okay. So. Kind of explain for people who don't know Death by Audio.
So Death by Audio,
7 years.
Right. Yeah. So Death by Audio was started as a pedal company, and it still is a pedal company, like an effects pedal company, and which at some point a few years back I started working with and building the pedals and keeping everything running and all that stuff. But in 2007, there was a venue started up in the same building that used the same name, which was Death by Audio, and that was a venue that was down the hall from the like little workshop where the pedals were getting built. And so when I showed up, that was already, both of those things were going already. Yeah. The venue had just started. The pedal company had been around for a few years already, and at some point, one of those temp jobs like dropped me, and I just was like, "Hey, Oliver, if you ever need any help, I have no way of making money right now." So, but that was it. And then the venue closed after 7 years in 2014. When same with Glasslands, same building. Vice moved into that building. So then the pedal company was still going to exist because it wasn't directly tied to that space like the venue was. Yeah. So the pedal company moved to the room we're in, or the building we're in now. Okay.
And they released Rejoicer.
They did, yeah. I forgot about that actually. Yeah, they did the.
I have a great research team.
Yeah,
you're looking at it.
Yeah, I can tell though. You've got microphones. iPad. They put out that first record on. Well, they put out the CD. Okay, and then K9 Records reissued it on vinyl. So and then put out the next record.
Okay, that's first Grooms.
Yeah, that was the first Grooms record, and I can't even remember how that came about. I think that somebody had the idea of starting up Death by Audio Records, and they were just like, "Hey, if you'd want to put out a single or something," and we were like, "How about a record?"
Yeah.
So.
Okay, and that was 2009, 2010?
2009, yeah. Okay. I think the vinyl reissue was 2010.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So over the course of these 5 albums, how would you say the band has grown? How is it different?
Well, it's, I'd like to think we've grown, but I'll talk about how it's different first. It's definitely different in terms of I'm the only original member. The first 3 records were me and my, good friend Emily, and then a revolving cast of drummers. And then after that 3rd record, Emily said she at least needed to take a break, if not, just step away entirely. And we had already recorded that 3rd record, and it wasn't out yet. And so I was like, all right, well, either this record just goes up on Bandcamp and that's it, or I send it to labels and see if anybody wants to put it out. And if they do, then it's got to still be a band. I can't be like, hey, do you want to put out this record? By the way, that band's done. Okay. You'll never get any support from us. And so I guess for that reason, that's when I enlisted friends of mine to just see how it went. And it was great. So, our current label, Western Vinyl, wanted to put out more records. So we just kept putting out records. So now the 4th record was the first one with Steve and Jay, and this new one, Exit Index, is the first time ever with the same lineup as the previous record. So, growth wise, I don't know. I mean, it's less abrasive, less noisy, but I don't think necessarily less adventurous, I guess. I'd like to think it's more adventurous. Okay. I got bored at some point of just being like, I'm going to throw things at my guitar and record that. And, I felt like I'd done as much noisy guitar stuff as I could do without boring myself. Yeah. So,
are there things you find yourself writing about, attracted to?
Yeah, I tend to write a decent amount about, I don't know why, but, about like a kind of a dark character, like a song from the perspective. This new record is almost entirely first person from the perspective of different kind of like imagined malignant types of people. I don't know why I tend to do that a lot. I think part of it is just being like, wow, I really don't like that kind of person. But like not wanting to, instead of just not liking them, I'm like, well, what's it like to be them a little bit? I mean, I'd like to, I mean, like, I wouldn't want somebody to just think, I don't like that Travis guy at all.
Yeah,
and then write a song just about how bad I am. Like, so the songs, that's a common thing, is just writing, kind of exploring what it might be like to be a different kind of person that I don't necessarily like.
Okay. You have an understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tend to write a decent amount about, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, which I've had for a while, and was diagnosed with when I was late teens, and some religious stuff. Sometimes, every once in a while, there'll be a love song even in there, and but I think I mean, I wonder if sometimes if I just write too much about the same kinds of stuff, but I feel like there's a zillion different angles you can write about a lot of this stuff from.
Okay.
You know? So
how does the OCD for you? Because I interviewed City and Horses, Mark, I forget his last name, and he was saying like, okay, like while we were interviewing, there's like an ongoing OCD, sort of like a background thing.
Like while he was like tensing up and
like he has to really focus.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, and it's also, I should say, it's also a lot better at this point. It used to be, I mean, for a while it was completely unmanageable and suicidal and stuff like that. But that was a while ago, and I will definitely say that medicine helped. But for me, it's an entirely I'm what's called a pure O. Okay. Which is I didn't know that at first, but
you're going to tell me now.
But it means so I have obsessive thought patterns, obsessive compulsive thought patterns, like that. They're like obsessive. They're like OCD thoughts, where it's like, you know, you're worried about something. So like, you know, cliche, you flip on and off the light switch a bunch of times. So I actually don't flip on and off the light switch a bunch of times. What I'll do instead is I'll mentally think like, all right, well, I'm worried about this thing, so that means that I have to go through the following mental gymnastics before I can get it off my mind for a little while. But it never would actually go away until I was medicated and had great friends and family who helped me through it. But kind of the medicine was really what honestly allowed me to kind of get some distance from those thoughts and be like, a lot of it was kind of an obsession with personal morality and worrying that I was a really just nasty, awful person, and worrying like, you know, like would I do this or that bad thing? Like, I bet I would, wouldn't I? And if I'm thinking that I would, then I probably would. And
even though you actually didn't.
Yeah, I never did. And but it's kind of related to Tourette's in a way. This kind of OCD, where it's like you get a thought that like you're afraid to do a thing, and so you're so afraid. Like with Tourette's, they're like, they say this horrible thing out loud because they're afraid that they're going to say it. And so it actually kind of scratches that itch to say it. And a lot of it's very closely related to like this kind of OCD, this morally obsessed, very obnoxious kind of OCD, where you're so worried that you're this kind or that kind of awful person that you just keep thinking about it. I guess basically. Okay,
so it's a vacation. The meds feel like a vacation from.
Well, it took a while for him. It took like 2 months for him to start working, but I mean, I still remember the first day that I felt okay, and for a split second, and until then there was almost no moments of relief, and then there was this one day I remember just walking and thinking like, I'm actually kind of glad to be alive. I think, like I feel all right now. And then after just having that one moment, I was kind of like, oh well, if that moment happened that one time, then it might happen more often, and like maybe that's what the medicine will help me feel like, you know, not like the medicine's going to help me feel good, but it'll help me just not feel like I'm covered by a zillion blankets all the time. So, it really kind of just, when I feel like when that medicine, any kind of like medicine for depression is working, it's not going to just make you happy. It's just going to make it so that you can get past the things that are filling you with anxiety. So, you can, it disarms them kind of.
Got it.
So
Okay.
for me.
Okay. Well, it seems even more remarkable to have that thoughts and living with that and to still have your day job and to still make music, an album every 2 years.
Well, at this point,
do all that.
At this point, the OCD is kind of just like a TV that's always on in the background. And I'm just kind of used to it. Mm-hmm. So there is like kind of a constant thrum of noise going on, but I'm just kind of like, oh, you're always there, you know, and very rarely these days does it like kind of rear up and really just infect my life like it used to. So that makes it a lot easier. I quit drinking, which you're definitely not supposed to do if you're taking antidepressants anyway. So, and I had a drinking problem. So between those two, OCD becoming manageable and not drinking anymore, it's a lot easier to have a job and, which is more of a night job really when I think about it, but, have a day job and tour and all that stuff.
Okay. How long have you been sober?
5 years as of this past May.
Okay.
So 5.5.
Congrats, dude.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah.
Good news.
Yeah.
Good.
I guess there are a couple songs about that too now that I think about it. So.
Okay. Cool, man. I'm excited. So how does this look for your outlook for that next album? Like, what are you excited about for the prospects of it?
Just, I mean, as always.
October 20th.
October 20th. Release party October 25th at Brooklyn Bazaar in Greenpoint. I guess I'm always just hoping people hear it. You know? I mean, I think one of the hardest things about music is not just whether or not, if you get a review and people didn't like it or whatever. Like, I'm actually pretty fine with it. As long as people just hear it, and then if they don't like it, then like I'd like it if they liked it. But what's I think really hard is, or not, it's not really hard. Something that bothers me sometimes is just thinking about like making a thing and then like it just gets buried in this, sea of endless internet noise. Yeah. So just hoping that it cuts through that, and then hoping we can go on tour and have a good time. And, I mean, nothing, the record's done. So at this point, I just hope people hear it. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of your music. Instant fan. I just heard of you this year. You played at Sunnyvale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was it? Nicholas.
Oh yeah.
That night.
What show was that? Was that with,
who was the other band?
It was our friends who
was it the Go to Bits?
And we shared that practice space with, it was Mike Law's band. Wild Arrows.
Okay,
Was that the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I immediately, because Chris from Nicholas was like, you got to stay for this band.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I met your basses.
Yeah.
Afterwards, and I've been a
nice
big
fella.
Fan. Yes, big fan ever since.
Oh, cool.
And best place for people to keep up online, get the album.
Get the album. You can go to westernvinyl.com or your local record store.
Bandcamp.
It's on Bandcamp. It's on. The whole thing will be on Spotify when it's released. You can pick it up from us at shows. We've got it on vinyl at this point already. So, good. Just the normal stuff, I guess. Yeah.
Sounds good, Travis. Thank you for doing
this. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Sure. I enjoyed it too, man.
Yeah. Awesome.
music from Grooms, Magistrate Seeks Romance. I just love Travis's voice. That is from Exit Index, out October 20th on vinyl and download. Pre-order it now at grooms.bandcamp.com or go on over to the website grooms.com. I am online also at talkmusictalk.com for more podcast information and to stream every single episode. You can also find me on Instagram at thisisboice. And I have some call to actions for you. If you enjoyed this episode with Travis Johnson, please share it on social media, email it to a friend, leave a 5-star rating and or review wherever you are listening, especially on iTunes, because this all helps to expand the TMT audience. And there is a TMT app. That's right. You can download it for free for iPhone and Android, wherever you like to get your apps, or you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, pretty much everywhere. Just search for Talk Music Talk. You can also find the podcast on SoundCloud, starting with episode 100 with Carlos D. That's Carlos Dangler, former bassist of Interpol. That's episode 100 at soundcloud.com/thisisboice. Thank you so much for listening. Till next time, and there will be a next time. This one's for you, Liz.